want to welcome everybody. I'm very proud to represent your board of directors to you. I think this board has done more as a group to further Shelley collecting than any other that I've worked with. During the pandemic, we managed to meet regularly by taking on the challenge of learning to Zoom, and it was a big challenge, wasn't it? That included a lot of behind the scenes work to learn how to do all kinds of Zoomy things. We have all been able to stay in touch and make new friends from home. Our first Zoom annual meeting has evolved to monthly meetings shared among the UK, the Australians, and us. Those talks are also available on our website for anyone to enjoy anytime. Many of us have joined together to share our collection with new members and with friends of friends, treating the newbies to a new bit of Shelley from new friends. We have donated and given away pieces to 29 new members this year and last year. Next year, we'll send birthday greetings to ensure our friends are cared for on their happy day. We have over 106 dinner and tea settings pictured on our website, enough to add glow to anyone's day. We have new Facebook and Instagram sites and hundreds of postings and likes. The pattern books are not only saved, but now restored, thanks to many donations, including ours from around the world. And note, this did not happen this year, but they're now available. 222 membership cards went out, checks were recorded, PayPal and bank accounts maintained, bills for everything got paid, 222 membership records, addresses, emails, and phone numbers were recorded and maintained and sorted and passed along to those of us who needed it. Several inquiries a month are researched in the pattern books and the Shelley Collector's Bibles. The magazine is in the new safe hands of Carolyn Keating, with my heartfelt gratitude. We have balanced articles and a backlog of them for the future. A new author runs the auction pages. All of this is the work of just 10 people. 10 people who find ways to keep us all connected and interested and able to keep on enjoying it all. 10 people who have thrived and helped us all thrive despite the pandemic. We are gathering in small groups again, finally, for regional meetings, mostly in Michigan, California, and Florida. Unfortunately, the most recent gathering in Michigan had to be canceled because Mike and I both had COVID. We are hoping to meet nationally next year. I am personally inviting each of you to join us in the effort to keep all of these things functioning. Do something as little as bringing a plate of cookies to the regional nearest you. Show off something from your collection at a Zoom meeting like we already had fun doing. Invite the members in your state to a group lunch at a restaurant and then back to your house to share your collection and talk for a bit. Call any of the board members and offer to do anything to help. Come and share with us. You will be so much richer for the sharing and joining in. And please welcome Jerry Pierce, the UK chairman, who is here with us this afternoon. Jerry, would you like to say a few words? If I caught you flat-footed and you're waiting for later, that's okay. This weekend is the Australians' annual meeting as well as ours. Because of the time difference, their meeting was our last night, and any of the Australians attending now are here in the very early morning of Sunday after. Helen, good morning if you're here, and any other Australians, we're thrilled to have you. And now to begin with the speakers. Lyle?
Okay.
Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to our meeting today. My name is Lee Clark, and I live in Jupiter, Florida. I've been a member of the National Shelley China Club since 2005, when my mom introduced me to this beautiful English china. She owned an antiques and collectibles store, And she told me about all the people who came into her shop and said as nonchalantly as they could, "And would you have any Shelley china?" Of course, after I showed an interest in it, she saved all of her pieces for me. As I am not an expert on Shelley china by any means, I thought that I would show you pieces from my collection based upon their shape. I will also add a few facts about the time period in which the shapes were made. I acknowledge with gratitude the resources that are stated on the last slide of this presentation. So sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy some pictures of some really beautiful Shelley china. The first piece in my collection dates from the late 1800s. If we had lived in that time period, the ladies would have worn tightly fitted bodices with high necklines, narrow sleeves, and lacy frills at the wristline. Our hair would have been tightly curled on the top of our heads. Men, you would have worn stiff high collars with slim jackets worn open. Your hair would have been short and parted on the side. Older fellows would have sported beards, and heavy mustaches were in vogue. At the Shelley Wileman factory, Joseph Shelley would have died in 1896, and his son Percy would have hired Roland Morris and Frederick Reed and other highly qualified designers to improve their china product. Shapes created during this period include square, Kenneth, daisy, butte, New York, and dainty. Now, let's have a look at some beautiful examples of those shapes. I have only one square-shaped example, this one, registration 6558, from 1884. I know that many of you have lots of different examples made by Wileman, and I invite you to share them in a presentation similar to this one. The Kenneth shape from 1886 was named after one of Percy Shelley's twin sons. This Chelsea pattern on Kenneth reminds me of some designs I've seen from the Pennsylvania Dutch country in the United States. The daisy shape from 1889 and also made by Wileman is rather pointy in my opinion, but it's still super attractive. The blue and white pattern on the left is called Jungle, and it's one of my favorites, though I have to say that I felt bad when a friend accidentally broke a saucer from the pattern 4646 duos that you see in the picture on the right. If you have a saucer to spare, I'd sure appreciate you letting me know. I have a few standard butte-shaped cups and saucers, but I have to say that I love these oversized farmers' cups and saucers made from 1890. I love a big cup of hot coffee in the morning, and there's nothing better than savoring a huge cup such as these. The begonia pattern is my absolute favorite. The New York shape, manufactured starting in 1890, has a sleek, rounded look, especially when compared with the daisy shape. Thanks to the Shelley Group's website, I was able to identify the shape of the Chatsworth teapot, which is sized just right for an afternoon break. I was surprised to learn that the dainty shape, which has been and still is so popular in the United States, started way back in 1896. This is the shape of the majority of my pieces. The solid gold one shown towards the right on this slide is rather unusual. I bought it at a consignment shop in Atlanta for $15, and I packed it oh so carefully for a plane ride back home. In the fall 2000 issue of the National Shelley China Club newsletter, I discovered an article by Ray Reynolds about this all-gold cup and saucer. He explained that while it certainly was Shelley china, this duo would never have left the factory completely covered in gold. In fact, after several examples were returned to the Shelley factory, some company representatives investigated examples of this duo, and they discovered that it was indeed a Shelley pattern number 13567/S3. But they never did find out who gilt all over this cup and saucer. Ray was of the opinion that there were probably few pieces made this way, and that they were quite unusual. If you own a similar duo, please share it with us after this presentation. The next section of the slideshow covers shapes made from the 1900s to the 1920s. At that time, women wore practical working clothes, sometimes even overalls and trousers. Hair was worn with a center part, and younger girls began to wear bobs, short bobs. The three-piece suit was in vogue for men, but between 1914 and 1920, many men wore uniforms owing to World War I. Older men still wore beards, but younger men sported mustaches or were clean-shaven. At the Shelley-Weilman Company, two of Percy Shelley's sons joined the company, Percy Norman and Vincent Bob. Many new shapes were developed at this time, and I have many of them in my collection. Let's take a peek. The Gainsborough shape is something that I have several of. It was developed in 1900. I even have an example of the older Gainsborough teapot shown on the bottom left. I know that many people love this shape, but I personally have trouble holding the cup as I drink from it. I prefer a handle with a larger opening for my finger to grasp the cup, but aren't they beautiful? I only own one example of the royal shape, manufactured in 1902. I purchased this duo in 2018 in Tampa at the first and only National Shelley China Club convention that I have ever attended. I love the colors in this trio. The mocha shape was begun in 1913. This boxed set was purchased from an outdoor vendor at an antique show in West Palm Beach. It was raining that day, and to my dismay, when I spied the box, it was getting drenched. I quickly spoke to the dealer, who pulled it in under her canopy. The china inside the box was in perfect condition, and when the box dried out, it was fine, although it was a bit stained on the top. As to the sgraffito set to the right, I purchased that one on eBay, and I have subsequently acquired a sixth cup and saucer. Harebell is one of my favorite patterns. I love the oleander shape, which was started in 1914. Because I picture these cups wrapped in bib lettuce, and I'm not even a vegetarian. I also love the teapot finial and the muffin ear top. I only have one example of the tall oleander, which was started also in 1914. This one in the yellow primrose pattern was a birthday gift from a friend. This year she gifted me an apple-shaped Harmonyware jam jar, a first for me. She's a good friend, don't you think? The Norman shape, which was begun in 1915, was named after Percy Shelley's son, Percy Norman. I love both the patterns that I own, the Wisteria because of those lovely purples in there, and the Dorothy Perkins because of the cross hatching. The Vincent shape was created in 1916, and it was named after another of Percy Shelley's twin sons. I love the contrasting colors in the balls of yarn pattern to the right, probably because I'm a cat person, and I can picture my cat knocking a ball of yarn across the floor for a bit of a chase.
Jen, right now we get there at 5:15.
I have only one example in my personal collection. I love this cup for its easy to grasp handle and its smooth, sloping shape. I also love the Versailles pattern, which appeals to everybody, even if you're not French. Hands down, Queen Anne from 1926 is my favorite shape. I have a few in my collection, which are shown on this slide. Yes, it's a bit pointy as I described the daisy shape, but the edges are flat, which appeals to me. The designs are lovely. Who doesn't love bluebirds, irises, campanula flowers, and sheep in a pasture? This dainty cup, tall dainty, and saucer bears a Shelley stamp, but there's no pattern number, but it is definitely taller than the standard dainty counterpart. While it's plain white, it still makes a big statement for its beautiful simplicity. I have made my next shapes category to range from 1930 to 1939. At this time, women dressed in slinky satins and other fabrics to show off their body curves. Hairdos were short, close to the head, with finger waves near the hairline. Men were starting to loosen up from their three-piece suits, and wearing a tie was no longer obligatory. Beards and heavy mustaches began to disappear, and most men, in fact, were clean-shaven. At this time, at the height of the Depression, there were some restrictions placed on English potteries regarding glaze and size, but Shelley had already developed an extensive export market for the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Therefore, the challenge was shipping the pottery overseas without it being damaged. Shapes at this time included Regent, Vogue, Chester, Floral Dainty, Oxford, Windsor, Court, Eve, Footed Oleander, Cambridge, Ripon, Kent, Richmond, Henley, Ludlow, Warwick, Perth, and Ely. Let's take a gander at some of these shapes. The Regent shape from 1930 is distinguished by its round handle, very easy to hold. The shape is very conducive to large color splashes. I love the blue and yellow harmony wear pattern, the stripes and lines of the swirl patterns, and the apple blossoms are just exquisite. The Vogue shape from 1930 is daring indeed. This cup and saucer, which I purchased at the 2018 Tampa Nscc conference, is a gorgeous example of the Art Deco period. It shines in my Shelley cabinet. The Chester shape from 1931 is easily confused with another shape that we have seen, Regent. But if you look at the circle handle, it is attached to the cup by two lines and not just one. The Floral Dainty shape began in 1932. It is a lovely ornamentation to the basic dainty shape. I wish that I had more coordinating pieces. The Oxford shape was born in 1934. It is similar to the other rounded handled cups, except that upon closer inspection, the circle isn't perfectly round and it's on a slant in relation to the cup's body. Thanks to the Shelley Group's website, I was able to identify this teapot as Windsor shaped, which was created in 1934. I purchased it in a small antique store in Australia. I don't have any matching pieces, but celandine pattern is indeed very attractive. The Court shape, begun in 1935, is another pattern with a roundish handle. The handle is perfectly sized for sipping a steaming cup of tea. This is my only example in the Court shape. The Eve shape is also started in 1935. My only example is this cup and saucer. While I don't know for sure, I believe it was painted outside of the factory by one of the many talented artisans who worked in the Shelley factories.
No surprise that it simply will not show them or distort.
The footed oleander is a stunner of a shape. The foot is often covered in gilt, and the patterns chosen for this shape, which was created in 1935, are exceptionally beautiful. Of the examples shown here, my favorites are the paisley pattern and countryside on the left. The Cambridge shape, which is shown here, was made in 1937. I love the scene that is depicted on these pieces. The heather, glorious Devon, and England's charm patterns bring to mind the beauty of the UK countryside. According to Wikipedia, Ripon is the oldest city in England, and it's located in the borough of Harrogate, North Yorkshire, England. These two duos are named for the city whose shape was created in 1937. This slide features the only Kent-shaped cup and saucer that I own. I love it. The flowers are beautiful and the handle is quite attractive. The pattern name is Dresden Flowers, and the shape was started in 1937. The Richmond shape was created the next year, and it is also included in my Shelley inventory. I love the blue princess pattern to the right. I have always told my husband that I was meant to be a queen, but a princess will do for now. The Henley shape, which was started in 1938, has a two-piece handle which adds to the interest of the cup shape. I love the border embellishment on the rose spray patterns featured on the right. The Ludlow shape, which was begun in 1938, is very popular. I have several examples myself. I love the delicate nature of the shape with the flutes. The floral patterns are enticing, and the trim in gold or a coordinating color finishes the design perfectly. The Warwick shape has fat and sloped sides. My shape examples are floral in design, which suits them to a T. I love the Perth shape, which was created in 1939. Its handle has an interesting downward sloping tab, and the nipped edges certainly add interest to the cup shape. This blossom pattern is one of my very favorites in green and gray. I found it at a Goodwill store at a reasonable price. And while I've never visited Perth on either side of the world, visiting both is on my bucket list. Created in 1939, the Ely shape is similar to the Kent shape, but from what I can tell, the handle is slightly different. The city of Ely was once home to Oliver Cromwell. I wonder if he ever drank tea. My next subdivision of shapes from my collection runs from the 1940s through the 1950s. During this time period, there was a shortage of fabric which had been created by World War II. As a result, clothing was very minimal, with few pleats and no trimmings. Skirt length was a bit below the knee. Many people of both sexes still wore uniforms. Men wore short hair and were clean shaven. At the Shelley factory, past pottery restrictions were gradually lifted. The factory was enlarged, kilns were changed, and changes were made as to how the cups would be formed. The patterns that were issued were mostly floral in design, and new shapes included Victor, Stratford, New Cambridge, Canterbury, Stirling, and Athol. Now the Victor shape was created in the 1940s. All of my examples have a very sturdy feel to them, and the colors are quite contrastive. The white centers make for a striking look, don't you think? The Stratford shape was created 10 years later in 1950. To me, its fluted shape almost looks like a flower bud about to bloom. The New Cambridge shape was developed in 1951. Its nipped edges on the plate, saucer, and cup rim add to the interest of the shape. The New Cambridge shape also has a foot that sometimes offered a sharp contrast to the pattern on the cup's body. The Canterbury shape appeared in 1955. I have 3 examples of the shape in the form of mini cups and saucers. I have an orphaned mini cup in the melody pattern as well, and I would love to unite it with its saucer if you happen to have a spare one. The next shape in my collection is Stirling, created in 1956. The shape is exquisite with its edges flaring outward. My set in the enchantment pattern is far from complete, but I love the pieces that I have. The Athol shape, started in 1958, is named after a mountainous traditional region covering approximately 450 square miles in the historic county of Perthshire, Scotland. There are 2 handle shapes. One is standard and the other is thorn-shaped. I have 3 examples in my collection, one being standard and 2 with thorn handles. I love the fluted saucers, and I can see why Americans and Canadians are attracted to this shape. Now, the last division of my cup shapes comes from my collection, and it spans the years 1960 to 1966. The hippie movement on the west coast of the U.S. emerged at this time, experimenting with colors, patterns, and textures from non-Western cultures. Women's hair was worn long or was shaped into a wedged bob. Men's clothing lost its tailored look as collarless jackets, slim-fitting trousers, vividly printed shirts, and boots became popular. As for men's hair, it was anything goes, from long hair and beards to mustaches. At the Shelley China factory, the Shelley Company was bought out in 1966 by Allied English Potteries, and a very successful company owned by one family over 4 generations was now closed. Shapes from my collection, which were created during this period, include Bristol, Carlisle, New Mocha, and Boston. The only Bristol-shaped example that I own is shown here without a pattern number, but it appears to be in bridal rose or rose spray. I bought it in Canada when we visited our neighbor to the north. The set was in the store's display window, and I bought the entire display shown here. The shape was released in 1960. Also in 1960, the Carlisle shape was created. I own 2 examples, Green Daisy and Viscount. I love the sharply tipped handles and the gorgeous foot. The next to the last shape, which I will show today, was made in 1962. It is called New Mocha. It was a larger version of the mocha shape which we saw earlier. Sadly, when I purchased this set online, it did not arrive undamaged. As a result, I am looking for a replacement saucer and a plate to complete 4 trios. It's very modern looking, don't you think? The Boston and Lincoln shapes were both created in 1963, and they are the last of my Shelley shapes in the collection. Boston is very similar to the Lincoln shape, except that the Boston shape has notches on both the foot and the rim, whereas Lincoln has no notches on the foot and shallower notches on the rim. If I host a regional meeting at my home, I always display the wall hanging, which I made from a tea towel sold by the Shelley Group in the UK. I love it, and so do my guests. I wish to gratefully acknowledge the following sources for the information I have provided in this presentation. I tried not to make mistaken claims, but again, I'm not an expert. If you believe that I've made an error in identifying a shape, then I'm happy to hear from you. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the shapes in my Shelley China collection. Your challenge? See how many different shapes you have in your collection and make a presentation just like this one. Thank you very much.
Well, Lee, thank you very much for a presentation that was not only informative, but technologically stunning. I'm sure most of the folks here are sad that Shelley stopped production in 1966, not only because they would have liked to have seen what Shelley did, but more importantly, they would like to hear how you would have characterized it.
Well,
So,
it was
again,
my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, please wave your hand or use the hand button to ask.
There's one from Bruce.
Unmute, Carl.
There we go.
Long.
Bruce.
Yeah, I noticed you presentation excellent. There's a in the last slide, I think you called a new mocha shape,
Yes.
which is I think I'm not. I may be wrong, but I think it's actually called Avon.
Oh, wonderful.
Or
Okay.
New Bristol. I'm not too sure. Chris probably is the expert, but I have quite a few of the Avon in different patterns. One of my favorite is a pattern called Cleopatra, which is
yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
And I think that's what it may be called, the Avon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful collection. I haven't got that many variations myself.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the information. I'll look into it.
Cool. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Lee?
Yes, Andrew.
Yeah, we also have, we've always known it as Avon coffee set with different shaped cups. The coffee can for Avon is much larger than other coffee cans, if you notice.
Yes. Yes, I like that. Yeah.
They also do it in pink.
Oh, okay. I'll be on the lookout for that one.
Yes, indeed. And both of them are lovely. We use them quite a number of times.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the update, and I will look into this new Avon word for me. Yeah.
Gina is just going to raid the cabinet and, and find us an example. We'll just put it up on the screen.
Right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you very much, by the way.
You're welcome. In case anyone is wondering, in January, Lynn Smith, our president, had asked us on the board if we would make presentations, and I made this one. It took me about a week because I had to take a lot of pictures and do some research and put it all together and write the script and then record it. And you guys can do it too. And I just challenge all of you to get out there and do it. I mean, if I could do it, you can do it. I promise.
You tell them, Lee.
Yeah, please get on board and share, because this is how, we get to know each other in our collections. So anybody else have a question before we get the pretty Avon cup?
Lee, can you see my screen? I just switched it to a cabinet.
Ahead. Yeah,
There's some pink.
Let me see where you are.
It's not my face anymore.
Okay, and what am I looking for?
The blue and the pink in that Harlequin.
Oh, here we are.
Oh,
This is-
there's the blue. I can't find you yet, Rochelle. Oh, there you are. Okay, I see it. I see both you guys, Andrew and Rochelle. Yeah, oh boy, you've got a lot.
I do. That's why I was trying to show you.
Wow, I'm impressed.
And here we have the pink.
Oh, beautiful. I love that gray on there too. Oh, I
Yes.
love that. Super. Thank you, guys. That's awesome. Really nice to see. Yeah.
And the other cup
Teacup.
is a teacup.
Oh, I see the difference. Indeed. Okay. Yes, indeed. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rochelle. Anybody else have a question before we move on to Marcus's?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's see if I can find Marcus. Are you here somewhere?
Yes, I am.
There we go.
Yeah.
All righty then. Well, take it away.
That's your one.
Again, everybody, please mute yourselves so that we don't interrupt the speakers.
Yeah.
Please mute. I'm going to stay with the screen just a second here. I don't know if anybody can see me. I don't know. I'm small on my screen, but this all started with an article by Carolyn Keating in the fall of 2011. There's a magazine, and I'm sure we're all memorized it. But in that article, she wrote about the World's Fair and what went on at the World's Fair, a lot of the details. I thank her for that article because that's what really kicked off the subject of my talk here today, which is what did he see? From Chris Watkins to Sue Hill in both of their books, they talked about what it was that Percy saw in Chicago. And what he would have seen, and you can see this very well, but this is what he would have seen, which is his company's wares, but he saw more than this because he can see these at home. This is done, as we all know, on a traditional pattern, the shell pattern, which is 150025, which is a registered pattern, but they had this. So now I'm going to begin my talk. This thing back where it belongs. Okay, so the Chicago World's Fair, as we call it, was actually the Columbian Exposition. And what this talk is about is what did Percy see at the fair that caused him to change the direction of the Wildman Pottery Company. Okay. Chicago won the honor over New York, St. Louis, and Washington. They did this by competition. The players back then in New York were J.P. Morgan, Vanderbilt, Astor, and Carnegie. And back in Chicago was Marshall Field, Philip Armour, Cyrus McCormick, Charles Yerkes. What finally persuaded Congress to select Chicago was that a man named Lyman Gage, who raised several million additional dollars in a 24-hour period over and above New York's final offer. And that convinced Congress to say Chicago will be the winner. Lyman became the chairman of the board. The first American Expo in Philadelphia was in 1876 for our centennial. It had drawn big crowds, but it was a financial disaster. The Chicagoans resolved that they would not have the same fate and set out to make an event that would be popular and make money. The exposition settled on using nearly 700 acres around Jackson Park on Lake Michigan. This would give the fair a water location to represent coming across the Atlantic. Daniel Burnham was selected the director. Burnham, as the director, emphasized architecture and sculpture would be central to the fair. And what he wanted to do was assemble the top talent. Competition was very tough. Probably the most fascinating competition was by two men. One was Thomas Edison and the other was George Westinghouse. What they were competing against was for the power and electricity and lighting for the fair. And the competition was actually very tough. Westinghouse, George actually underbid Thomas and got the contract. The difference was that Westinghouse was going to use Tesla's alternating current technology, which meant that Thomas Edison would not let them use any Edison light bulbs. They had to invent a new light bulb. But they did it. They got the new light bulb, alternating current. And what was great about this was that it exposed the public to alternating current and that AC could be safe and reliable. And we remain AC today. So electricity before that really had not been used, but now is used. And this fair really showed that it could light up the night. And the fair had elevators, moving walkways, appliances, all sorts of things that would become commonplace someday. On May 1st, 1893, Grover Cleveland, the current president, flipped a switch and 100,000 light bulbs came on. This signaled the future where electricity would be common. William Morrison, a chemist from Iowa, had been working on batteries, and he wanted to get a better battery and get them to work better, new configurations. To show off his batteries, he developed an electric wagon. He brought his wagon to the fair, and many people got a ride in their first automobile. Although it wasn't called an automobile then, it was called a buggy. The fair that changed America had a lot of firsts, as most fairs do. This one had cream of wheat, shredded wheat, juicy fruit gum, brownies, Cracker Jacks came in at the fair in 1893. One of the fascinating things that was at the fair was a dishwasher. There had been other attempts at dishwashers, but a woman had actually invented what became our modern dishwasher. And she actually invented it and patented it, although she was challenged by men who had said that it was their invention. What made it different was that she understood it needed pressurized water. And after the fair, the only people that bought it were restaurants and hotels and stuff. But today, that is what we use as her idea. Electric elevators were at the fair, which was a completely new idea. Zipper, which are commonplace today, but then it was new. One of the things was the Pledge of Allegiance was first done at the fair. The Liberty Bell, for its first and only time, was moved from Philadelphia to Chicago. Kinetoscope was there. Now, kinetoscope was one of those fascinating things. Edison, although he lost the bid for the power, certainly showed up for the fair. He had an enormous exhibit. In his exhibit, over in one corner, was this small device called a kinetoscope. Now, most people missed it. Few would have seen it and realized what it was, but what it really was and what's so cool about it was that it was the first voice recording equipment. He was basically introducing that to the world. We now call those records, and we use it still today. Pabst Blue Ribbon beer was introduced, Aunt Jemima syrup. The Ferris wheel, George Ferris had this contraption to compete with the Eiffel Tower, and it did. The moving sidewalk, which went out to the casino. One of the cool things, I think, is meat in a bun, which we today still call the hamburger. It was introduced there. Spray painting was introduced. It had been used for rail, but not really been used as they used it in 1893 at the fair. They had to paint the entire fair, and they had to do it quickly because they were behind. And so they invented the methodology for pressurized painting, and they painted the whole thing white. Fluorescent lights were introduced, which allowed them to light the fair, as we are accustomed to today. There was train stations, horse stations put in the fair. You could get a direct train from New York to the fair. Postcards were introduced. So America's postcard was introduced in 1893 at the Chicago World's Fair. Now, the name has become associated with our fair is the White City. And as I just said, it's because of this painting, they painted all these enormous buildings really white. And because of the way they were built, these things absolutely just glowed. They glowed in the sunshine, and the lights at night, they also glowed. So it became called the White City. As I said, the fair is enormous. It covered miles. The fair, if you walk the entire fair, would be nearly 150 miles. This map that I'm showing right now, the leg that sticks out, which is the midway, that's a mile long. The fair itself was a couple of miles. Enormous property, enormous buildings. Over 200 buildings were built. All but one were temporary. 79 countries were represented. The Grand Basin, which was there in the center, had 12 major buildings surrounding it. The manufacturing building was the largest. It covered nearly 7 acres under one roof. It could hold nearly 300,000 people. That's 3 times the size of the largest sports stadium still today. So they could make things really, really big. People ate 40,000 pounds of meat or more a day for all 6 months. One of the songs that was written after the fair has a line called "Thine Alabaster Cities Gleam." It's referring directly to this fair. Admission was kept at just 50 cents. And they did this so that everybody could come. They wanted it to be affordable, and they were successful. Many did borrow money to come to the fair, so they would actually take a mortgage out on their farm and take their horse and wagon and come all the way to the fair to see it, because it was a sensational thing. 27 million people, paid attendance was just shy of that. And when the population of the United States was a total of only 63 million people, it's remarkable that that many people showed up. Replicas of ships came as well. Columbus's ships came, but the Norwegians actually sent a Viking ship too, which was pretty remarkable. Some things have happened about the fair that are actually get a lot of publicity. This fellow right now, H.H. Holmes, he has a lot of fame right now from books and movies made about him in the last decade. But the truth was, he was just a really creepy criminal guy that killed all of his business associates, so he wasn't really a mass murderer. So we'll move on from him. So I was talking about the ships. What's interesting about the Viking ship was that they did not yet know that Leif Erikson had sailed from Norway to America. What they did was they had found a ship just a few years before and had discovered how the Vikings made their ships. So they made a replica ship, and it successfully sailed from Norway to the Chicago World's Fair. So it actually substantiated, not even knowing that the original discoverer was the Vikings, they were successful in their efforts. So that's the captain I've referenced there. It's as well as where it came from, Bergen. They did make replicas of the Nina, the Pina, and the Santa Maria. They sailed from Spain and got there successfully. One of the significant things about the fair was the artwork. The artwork was very important. They had all the sculptures of the world come together. Hundreds of magnificent statues were made. This particular one became very famous. This is Proctor's The Indian. He did more than this, but there's still Proctor statues talked about today. As I said, the fair was enormous. This is a interior transportation building. Now you'll note a big difference from today in that there's no automobiles at all. What we're seeing here are wagons like a Studebaker or a Durant. There's fake horses. There's a shipping line. The Cunard shipping line has a booth there, and that's the line that John and Linda just took from England to the United States. So that's what you'd see at the fair were current businesses that were operating. To get to the fair, you could take a train, but you could also take ships. Streamlines were set up. This is the World's Fair Steamship Company set up just to come to the fair, and it would come from destinations around the Great Lakes. The fair, as I said, it was really enormous. This is the administration building. This is a photograph, and you can see just the size of the building and the people, the waterways. This next map is this is a drawing of the main fair. And here you can see the manufacturing building in front, administration building, other buildings around. The building on the far side, no, on the right side there is still exists. It was actually built to stay. The Midway was quite something. It was actually followed the idea of the 1889 Paris Fair. The 1890 Paris Fair is where the Eiffel Tower was introduced. What the French had done was make an area that had interesting things to see. So it was actually sort of like entertainments and educational things. And we did it the way we did also, which is ours is called the Midway Plaisance. And plaisance means desire in French. So this would be desirable things. This is a photograph of the manufacturing building, manufacturing liberal arts building. Here you can see the enormous size of it. The other thing I discovered studying this is that there's like so much information on this fair. You can study it for a couple of lifetimes. This is the Ferris wheel. Each of these cars is a separate building. Actually, each car holds can hold over 60 people, 40 chairs. The fair could hold over 2,000 people at a time. It was a tremendous hit. Cost 50 cents to go in, a 20-minute ride. And it was a big hit. It was in the center of the Midway. Here's a picture of the administration building lit up at night. give an idea of what this lighting did. It really, it was a world, 1893 was a world that had not been lit. So having the fair lit up like this was something people had just not seen. As far as what Percy would have seen, because it's what he's a businessman, he's going to be interested in these sorts of things. All the important countries competitively had displays. This is a French display, Belgian, Swiss, Bulgarian. They had displays of all their goods, wares, things that they wanted to show off. Here's the Japan display. It had a lot of things. It had stuff that they were making currently, stuff for export, but stuff also for domestic use. Here's examples of the German display, which that vase on the left is the Royal Dresden vase, which is, I think, remains a famous vase. On the right is Japanese display. These are, again, from the manufacturing pavilion. Liberal Arts building. These are German displays of German wares. Here's France. France also had wares. Now, many of these things Percy could have seen at home because he lived in Europe. He would have seen French, German wares. He also would have seen Austrian wares and things from England. So England also had wares. I have not found any evidence that any of these cups and saucers are Wildman cups and saucers yet, but it could have been that England could have displayed some Wildman pieces. We know that Wildman had sold souvenir pieces. Here's something that's not a Wildman piece. This is what is typically available today. This is a ceramic pot made for the fair that's still in the market today. Here's another piece. These are the more souvenirs that the fair sold. This is at a historical home in Marshall, Michigan. So these things now exist. Another thing that's on the market right now is a Dalton pitcher. What Dalton did was adapted this pattern to the fair. So this pattern's used on other wares by Dalton, but this particular one had Christopher Columbus and George Washington on it, then had the World's Fair at the top. So this is done. Some manufacturers actually displayed and advertised that they were going to be at the fair. This is Villeroy and Bosch, which I think is still in business out of Germany. They were showing their traditional wares, but they actually had this as an advertising brochure to come and see us and come and see our stuff. As far as Shelley souvenir pieces, from what I've been able to find, their pieces were made based upon drawings because the fair was not finished in time to have any photographs taken of it. So you actually had to make your wares from drawings that were provided like these. This is an example of the forestry building, fisheries, Wyoming buildings. All of the manufacturers got these drawings. These are fair pieces made by Wedgwood. These again are from these drawings. You can sort of tell they're the drawings because of the proportions are off. Here's my favorite drawing, which is used on the Shelley piece. This is the Fine Arts Building. The Fine Arts Building was also used by others, the drawing was. So this is a competitor of Shelley, a souvenir piece. This is the Art Palace, but again, it has this proportion. The actual Art Palace is this building, and the proportions are actually different from what are on the plates. But that's okay, because that's the way these things go. What each of the competitors did is they actually adapted the drawings they got into their own wares. So this piece by Shelley, what I think is really great because it has this guy here in a rowboat. Of course, there were no rowboats at the fair. I can't imagine rowing that far, but they put the rowboat because their artists thought that that's a good idea, that it would sell. And a lot of these have survived. So I have to say that their idea that it would work to sell plates with a guy rowing a boat and some nice plants and trees was a good idea because that's what their piece does. Now, what I've found remarkable about Shelley was that in making these pieces, they first had to get drawings of the fair buildings. Next step was to make new copper plates, transfer to tissue, then place them on the bisque, fire them with glaze, pack the goods in straw, shipped by steamship to New York, then by train to Chicago, unpack, and then the barrels were actually returned to Wildman. We just got this from John and Linda when they were here. When they unpacked one of those barrels, there was more straw in the barrel than could put back in the barrel. And that's what it took to get these little Shelley plates all the way around. Here's another close-up of the art palace. Here's another plate with that has the manufacturing building and the fine arts building. Here's the government building. Here's the electrical building, which I showed a few minutes ago. Here's another electrical building. And so I don't know how many of these exist. I've got quite a few of them. I'm hoping someday to have an actual number of how many of these were made by Shelley for just the fair. Now, what Percy would have been actually seeing at the fair was this. What this is the Cincinnati collection. So after the fair, the Cincinnati Art Museum was able to get a lot of the ceramics, and they have been very involved in it. And this is from their archives. These are actual pieces that were at the fair. And here you can see what Percy would have been looking at as far as competition and what people had made and had already made. Here you can see from the Cincinnati collection some of the techniques and stuff that would be common on Shelley in just a few years. And so he was taking notes of all these manufacturers and what they were doing. And it's more of the Cincinnati collection. But what was it that Percy observed besides tough competition? By the way, this is not Percy at the fair. Still a picture I could find. He was 33 years old when he came to the fair. He wasn't quite this age. One of the things he saw that I think influenced him was this person. This is a L.C. Tiffany painting. This painting was in the arts building because he had been accepted as one of the 600 paintings from around the world because he was already a successful oil painter. So Louis Comfort Tiffany was actually known before 1893 as an oil painter and was accepted and got pieces like this, which is called Taming the Flamingo, in major exhibits like the World's Fair. But his father had started a company, which we all know is Tiffany, and Tiffany had its own pavilion at the fair. And at the fair, they had its jewelry, but they also had a lot of other things that were made by Louis Comfort Tiffany, the son of the founder, but also they had their own display, which is this one. They were next to the Gorham exhibit. So, but inside of this, they had these vases, which are Tiffany vases. You can see the level of artwork they're doing. Here's the traditional Tiffany stuff that was both these pieces were at the fair. But yeah, they also had ceramics. So this was a Western themed vase shown by Tiffany at the World's Fair that I was able to find information on. But what Tiffany did at the fair that really influenced Percy was this. This is the chapel. In the Tiffany business that I just showed was this, and this is called the Tiffany Chapel. It still exists. It's been reassembled by the Charles Homer Morse Museum, which is in Winter Park, Florida. You can go and see this. There's an excellent video about this piece of artwork, and it's important into the consumer world and into the future of arts and design. What Louis Comfort Tiffany did with his chapel is, although it looks like a chapel, it looks like something that belongs in a church, the details of this chapel are so incredible that people that understood this sort of thing would see these and go, oh man, that's the game changer. And the way that the glass was handled and the way that the designs were handled, the way the lighting was handled, it was all completely new. And so there's a whole history of this. Percy would have seen these and thought, this is, we need to take note. Another big influence on Percy, I believe, would have been Japan. Japan had things in their pavilion which were remarkable, such as this piece. This is a Yabu Meizen piece. It's a traditional piece. It looks very traditional designs, but its use is completely different. This is a decoration, and so it's not made for consumption. It's made to decorate, which is a whole new business idea at the time. Another great piece that was at the fair was this one, which is Kozan's piece. She was an incredible sculptor. This piece, while it looks like it is cloth and string and things like this, there's nothing on it. It's all ceramic, all made with ceramic techniques. And it was apparently a big hit at the fair as far as what it was and what it was shown. Another Kozan piece showing the talent of Kozan is this piece. While it uses a traditional animal sculpture, which has been known in Europe for a long time before this, the piece itself is completely different. She has, the piece is thrown, the piece is colored. It's got a completely different approach for a decorative arts piece. And so this piece, it's said, had a big impact at the fair. But I think the biggest impact of Percy would have been this company. This is the work of Kotaro Yamadani. Kotaro was the chief designer of Rookwood. This Rookwood piece was at the fair. It still is well thought of. The detail of it is truly amazing. People noted it. Another piece that was also by Kotaro was this piece, which Percy would have seen live. This piece still exists. It's in Cincinnati. And the detail in this piece is really something. And you can see how a piece like this would influence Percy to go back and say, we need to sort of change the way we do things. So here's the detail in that piece. Rookwood was certainly an impact on the world. Those of us that are in the antique world and collect know that Rookwood's influence has remained important for a long time. The fair certainly thought Rookwood was important. They gave it this the grand award, which has got the grand prize. This prize still exists. It's down in Cincinnati, and so the Rookwood got the grand prize. So it obviously made a huge impact. In conclusion, the 1893 Chicago Fair was not a fair that necessarily looked forward. In its vast architecture and hundreds of statues, the appearance of the White City was classic. The businessmen and leaders had done this on purpose to make the greatest spectacle of all time successful. And it was. For the investors, it turned a profit that in the end turned at least $500,000 or $12 million today back to them. But something else was going on within the fair. By hiring probably the largest gathering of artists since the Italian Renaissance, the Chicago leaders had created a situation where things could change. By displaying these works in this unashamed celebration of consumerism, the fair was showing there would be opportunity to commercialize consumer-based products. Within the displays of Tiffany and Rookwood, one could see the elements of the end of the Victorian era and the emergence of arts and crafts. But more importantly, one could see the new markets developing that allowed consumers to purchase goods that were just essentials. They could buy things. Traditionally, that people bought toilet pieces and things like that, but now you could buy stuff just because they were pretty. Pottery could be made and successfully sold for its intrinsic beauty, and enough could be sold to make its production a viable business decision. And Percy Shelley took note, and as he took the company a few years later, he realized that competing effectively required top artists and more. And so I think he really, as soon as he got back home from the fair, he began to take steps that we need to change what we've been doing. So that concludes my talk. Stop sharing. Yeah, okay, stop sharing. Questions? Lee.
Yeah, I was just curious, where in Florida did you say that chapel has been rebuilt or reconstituted?
It's in Winter Park.
Winter Park. Well, next time we're in that part of the state, we're going to stop in. It looks beautiful.
It's worth, I'm going to stop in. I've been to Winter Park several times. Lee may know this. It's a good place to hunt for Shelley China. But I've bought Shelley there before in Winter Park. But I didn't realize this museum. It's not that old. They've just finished the restoration, but it's an enormous Tiffany museum there, Morse Museum.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Hey, Marcus.
Yes.
This is Donna. You said all but one building was torn down. What building remained?
It's now the science building, and it's the art building. So the art building was built to be permanent. So the art building, as it's called, which is on one of the Shelley pieces, was made of stone. It was both made at the time to stay. It was actually rebuilt in 1936, I think. But that's the building. It's the Science Center. You can still go to that museum today. So.
Oh, cool. Wonderful presentation. I learned so much. It was so interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry.
Marcus, yes, I agree. Wonderful. The amount of research there was just superb. The pieces you showed that were made by Wildman as souvenirs, were they all, well, that you know of, all just monochrome black? I mean, they're pretty boring, dull things, actually, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very boring. I actually, the first one I bought as a souvenir, as a World's Fair piece, because back 30 years ago, Wildman hadn't really gotten any traction as far as the market went. So my first couple of pieces were actually just, you bought them as a Chicago World's Fair piece. And they were this black and white on, but it is bone. So it is a bone china piece. And there's different shapes. So it wasn't just the shell shape, there's other shapes. There's cups, and what I'm going to try to do next is try to figure out how many patterns, if they made 6 patterns or 8 patterns or 5 patterns, or what they actually, I'm starting to get that count together, but they're not numbered. There's no numbers on them because they weren't made to be, they were made to be shipped and sold. They weren't going to make another one after the fair.
Thank you. I didn't mean that as an insult to your collection.
Oh, no.
But when you saw some of those wonderful Japanese pieces, just plain black was not too inspiring.
No, I kind of did that on purpose, that to sort of be black, and because it was a black and white world at the time, and so when you saw those, the incredible Tiffany and Rookwood pieces, it must have been quite a sensation to see those colors live. Anybody else?
I think it's an intriguing idea that Percy would come over and sort of see that kind of stuff. I wonder, can any of the English document that, in fact, he went back and said to somebody or wrote down or sent a note to the file? Is there some documentation that he said, hey, guys, we got to change what we're doing?
Chris Davenport, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Just from memory, Roald Dalton had a collection and had a stand at that exhibition. And one of the people who actually displayed there and had floral displays was a gentleman who had a signature of W. Slater. And it was Walter Slater, when he was working at Dalton's, hand painted some floral designs, which was on the Roald Dalton stand at the exhibition that Percy would have seen. And of course, but in 1905, Percy employed Walter for his art director.
Yeah, yeah, I have one of those Dalton pieces with Walter Slater's signature on it.
Yes, I have as well.
So, yeah,
and just going about the previous. After Percy did see the exhibition, he did come back, and of course he employed Reed, because a lot of the Wildman at that period was very bland, and he did employ Reed to bring in all the shapes and the designs more colourful. And of course, if you look at something like the snowdrop shape, which had all the good designs of the pansies and everything else, so. He did come back from that exhibition and decided to put more artwork and colour into the ware that Wildman produced.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else?
Looks like John Barter.
Yeah. Hello. I'm sorry I came in a little bit after you made a start. But did you talk about the James Wildman pieces that also have got Chicago, the Chicago Fair transfers on, because because of course the JF Wildman factory was sort of separate to the Shelley factory, Shelley Wildman factory at the time. Has there been many pieces with the JF Wildman backstamp appear? Because it's more like heavy iron stoneware, isn't it? Iron as such. Thank you.
Thank you, John. My answer is no. I have not seen one of those, a J.F. Wildman piece made for the 1893 Columbia. I'd love to see one. I'd love to have one. So if anybody knows of one, I'd love to both see it and or even track it down. So that would be, as you're right, John, they were two separate companies at the time. The Pottery Works, and the Pottery Works and the China Works were separate.
Yeah.
Because they would have made these in 1892. They had to start making this stuff, obviously before the fair opened in May. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, Marcus, thanks very much for an enlightening presentation. It makes you wonder whether we could do anything even remotely similar nowadays. For sure, it looks like we couldn't turn the lights on. So maybe we should go back to the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've concluded, our presentations, let's take a 10-minute break and come back in about 10 minutes. Okay.
Thank you. And welcome to our annual business meeting. I've mentioned a number of things that have happened, and now various members of the board will give more detailed reports. Before we start, please welcome Jerry Pierce, the UK chairman, who is here with us this afternoon, and it's his evening. Jerry, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, very, very briefly. Thank you for the opportunity. I did scribble a few notes. Despite the huge international distance involved, Zoom has brought us closer together through the mutual enjoyment of Shelley China. But in UK, and I think both of the other clubs now, face-to-face regional meetings have begun again following the COVID break. But throughout, we had the magazines to look forward to quarterly. Belonging to more than one club broadens your interests and knowledge, and I'm always intrigued to note how the superb magazines differ in style and content. Your American editor has recently changed from Mike Smith to Carolyn Keating, and ours in UK is in the process of changing from David Deller to Chris Davenport. David Deller's last issue will be the Christmas issue, and Chris will take over from January. The membership cost is worth it for the magazines, I feel, whether it's one club or all three. A magazine cost, really, if you think about it, is only about the cost of a decent trio. One slight difference with our group is that we are a charity, and we try to do charitable things in terms of information through the website. We're often asked by auction houses, universities, museums for information. Well, before that's charitable. But our major thing annually is that we support a student at the university in Stoke doing a ceramics course, and we help them financially for that. Whether a member of one or more club or not, the three different websites are accessible to all, and the wealth of information is expanding month on month. From each site, there are direct links to the other clubs, and I urge you to explore the database, pictures and recorded presentations available. Also free to all members are the monthly Zoom presentations, and I'm obviously talking to the converted because you're all here tonight via Zoom. But we have members that we just cannot persuade to join the Zoom sessions. Maybe you're the same, and perhaps you can try also to get more of your members involved. Probably the major benefit of belonging to more than one club is making new friends, whether it's via Zoom or leading to international visits. John and Linda have just toured part of America through knowing people through Zoom, through Shelley. Club fees are roughly comparable, and simple joining information is available online. PayPal will do the currency conversion for you. I look forward to welcoming any new members to the UK Shelley group, and you can find how to join from the website. And if you go onto your own website, you'll find links to the Australian and American clubs. So thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. And we're delighted to have you with us now and all of the times that we have Zoom meetings. This weekend was the Australians' annual meeting as well as ours, but theirs was last night. And now it's Sunday morning in Australia. Any Australians attending now are here in the very early mornings. I think they started at 2 in the morning instead of our 2 in the afternoon. Helen, good morning or good middle of the night. And would you like to say hello?
I would love to. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity. It's very exciting. It's not quite so bad. We're in the East Coast here, and I'm actually in a little town called Mittagong, which is about 1.5 hours drive south of Sydney. This is where we had our annual fair. So I'm in a hotel room, and I'm hopefully not disturbing everyone around me because it's about 6:30 in the morning. Not quite so bad as the 2 a.m. But we did have our AGM last night in slightly dramatic circumstances, that as I was telling Lynn before the meeting started, because we had a power outage, and we sort of had to sit in the dark for about 1.5 hours before we managed to get power back. And so yes, it was exciting times. So we did have a fairly brief AGM after that. We slightly briefer than we intended because the thunder was still rumbling around us, and we really weren't positive that we were going to continue to have power throughout. But so it was a bit of a dramatic end to a great weekend. It was so nice to have got back together again after so long. So it was our first annual fair for 3 years. And it was just lovely to see everybody again, much though we have benefited from the Zoom get-togethers and those sorts of things. It's just terrific to be back in person, and I wish you the best of luck for having that again, in your near future as well. I totally agree with what Jerry was saying. It's a great benefit to be a member of, as I am and as he surely is, of the 3 clubs. And it's great to get the 3 lots of newsletters. I'm sure you all love getting your quarterly newsletter. Well, imagine that times 3. It's just terrific. There's occasional overlap in some of the content, but there's lots of different things and lots of different perspectives. And it's just great to see a bit of content from all around the world. And it's lovely to know that, Shelley collecting is not just confined to your crazy end of the neighborhood, but it's a global phenomenon. Yes, you know what I mean. I don't know that I have anything else to add. You would be most welcome to join our club as well. Again, you can now do so by PayPal, and the application process is outlined online, and there's links between all the clubs' websites to find the other clubs. And it's been great having the opportunity of working with the other clubs in the Zooms and generally. So, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you today, and have a great rest of the AGM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. I can't begin to tell both you and Jerry how much the international friendships that we managed to make because of Zoom and expand because of Zoom have meant to me. Thank you. And now to begin with reports of what we're up to behind the scenes. from the board. Rochelle, will you begin with the treasurer's report?
Okay, so we're doing just fine financially. All the bills are paid and tax report got done, and we have a good balance. And with Carolyn in her excellent magazine, the costs are still, kept down as they have been passed down from Mike. So everything seems to be good. And any questions, you can email me later. That's it.
Thank you, Rochelle. Next up is our budget, which Lila is going to put on the screen because I'd like to have you approve our budget. And what I'd like you to notice about the budget is that we are budgeting for a decreasing number of memberships. We're budgeting for about 200 total people instead of about 222 that we've had in 2022. The memberships dues will gather us about $7,400, which is just over the amount that we need to fund for the magazine. We will have about 800 to spare from membership dues to cover various other things. And we expect to have some donations and some sales of pins and other goodies. But the major expense that we'll have will be about $6,600 for the magazine and postage. Other things on the budget are include a conference cost of $1,000 because we think we may need to spend some money this year to have a conference in person. So I doubt that we'll end up with a loss on a conference of $1,000, but it's there to allow us to spend it. The bottom line on this is that we'll have an excess of expenses over revenues of $2,500. And that will be coming out of the cash balance that we're carrying forward as of September 30th of just over 44,000. So having presented the budget, I would now like a motion from someone to approve the budget. Raise your hand to make the motion. I see a hand raised from Rochelle to make the motion. I need a second. Lyle, do you see a second?
Lyle Keating seconds the motion.
Thank you, Lyle. And I'd like to have a vote by acclamation.
Could I ask a question first?
Sure.
At least it's worth discussing, and I'm not sure where I would come down on it, but is it necessary to print and distribute the magazine? I raise it as a question because one could indeed have it online at probably a lot cheaper cost. And then people could choose to print those portions they wanted. Does that make any sense to the group to consider doing that? And maybe Lyle can tell us whether it truly is doable, first of all. That's the other question.
Well, it's clearly doable, and we certainly have discussed it. But Mike, you're waving your hand here, so why don't you tell us?
Yeah, we've actually attempted to do that, Frank. I don't remember how long ago it was. It's not been within the last 5 years. I think it's probably about 3 years ago, perhaps a little more. I did put PDF copies out available for the membership, and I published the PDF address in the magazine on page 2, and the response was overwhelmingly tepid. We barely got, I don't think we got 5 people each edition that went and looked. I will say that as a graphic image, the magazine in that PDF format was really quite stunning. I was quite pleased with how well it came out. If I'm not mistaken, I think I did either 4 or 6 subsequent issues like that. And it takes very little effort and virtually no expense to do it. It just wasn't real popular. People didn't sign up to do it. So if they didn't have a magazine in print to look at, maybe they'd go for it. But anyway, we tried it and it didn't work very well.
Ms. Sadoff, you have something to say?
Yes, actually, that's my pastor's name.
Okay.
Account, and I've become him for some reason. I'm Sheila Clark.
Oh.
San Antonio. I'm a member of the Fostoria Glass Club. I'm a member of the Depression Glass Club. They all do electronic newsletters. They're sent via email to all members. They're real pretty, but I happen to think the Shelley magazine is magnificent. I really like it. It's very professionally done. The graphics are beautiful, and you can print your newsletters out from your computer, but somehow it's just not the same. There are lots of wonderful articles in those electronic newsletters that I receive. But boy, I sure do like the Shelley one.
Carolyn.
I have a couple things. One is we would have to change the content of our articles to a great extent because we would not be able to use the pattern book images in instances where we don't have examples on the where because of our agreement with the archives in Stoke-on-Trent. So that's point number one. The other thing is that I've heard many times, and this goes back in time when we all were together, people want to hold that magazine in their hands, I think, and they're just not as happy looking at it on a computer screen. So that's my 2 points.
Can I just say something from UK? We've talked about this many times as well. And I think one indication perhaps is you have 40 members here tonight. So you have a great number of members in America and maybe worldwide who either don't want to use the internet or can't use it or don't have it, never learnt it. We have generally quite an elderly population, certainly in UK, our members, that I think to go to internet only, you could possibly lose a third or a half of your members.
Well said.
Thank you.
That's a strong argument. But I thought it was worth raising if you're worried about the cost.
So far, as long as we can continue to afford to print the magazine, I think that we should do so. And we can't afford to print it with our current due structure. So if there are there any other questions about the budget? Then I think we have a motion and a second, and I'd like to have you vote on to approve the budget by acclamation. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands. Are there any opposed? Raise your hand. I don't see any opposition, so the motion is passed and the budget is passed for this upcoming year for 2023. Thank you. Next is the membership report, which will be given by Lee Clark.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Folks, the membership committee of the National Shelley China Club has been very busy this year. We've had 3 new projects. We have others that will be discussed later as well. Committee members include Rocky Chen, Nancy Carpenter, Donna Gapin, Irene Shelley, Rochelle Hart, Jenny McNamara, and myself, Lee Clark. At present, our club has 124 individual members and 82 family members. And our committee's goal is to increase our membership numbers and to take special care of you, the members that we do have. We have been working on 3 major new events this year, and I'll describe them for you now. The first project has been going on for a little while. It's called Getting to Know You. It's a magazine column which I write. And the purpose of this column is to allow individual club members to get to know one another a little bit better. You know, to say, you are my cup of tea. When you get interviewed for the magazine column, I send you some questions and you answer them at your convenience, and we have a chat. And I then write about you based on the chat that we have. You are allowed to make changes in the column if you wish. It will not get submitted for printing until you give me permission to do so. We want you to be happy with it. So why not consider being part of this project? If you would like to tell us your Shelley story, please send me an email at clark164@bellsouth.net if you would like to be interviewed. My email address is included on the announcement page in the magazine. And if you didn't write it down, and it is a fun way to get to know one another better. So I really do encourage you to be part of this project. That's the Getting to Know You column in the magazine. Our second membership project is new this year. It is a birthday celebration card. If you guys will put your birth date on the membership renewal form, or if you can get new members, tell them to put their birth date on there. I will make a recording of your name and date and send you one of our specially made Shelley China Club birthday cards. On your special day, you should receive a unique birthday card, which is unique as you are. I don't know about you, but my mailbox is full of things that either get recycled or bills. And I think it would be awfully fun to get a card from the club. Don't worry, we don't need your birth year. All we need is the month and day in which you were born. And don't forget, if you have a January birthday, you need to renew early so that I can send you your card in the proper month. So this is something that our membership committee is doing, and I am going to be the one sending them. So I hope that you will enjoy it. The third new project we're having this year is the National Shelley China Club Facebook and Instagram pages. And Rocky Chen is an integral part of our committee, and he oversees this third project. In a minute, I'm going to turn the microphone over to him, and he will be able to explain that program to you. But thank you for listening to this membership report. Please email me if you would like to be part of the Getting to Know You column. And please don't forget to provide your birth date so we can celebrate with you on your next birthday. Thank you so much. Rocky?
Hi, hello everyone. This is Rocky Chen, and yeah, as Lee mentioned, this year we create the Instagram account and the Facebook account for the National Shelley Club. And this is also a big step for us to going online and share more and more beautiful Shelley collections. So we hope more and more people get to know Shelley and Shelley China collections. And right now, we have about 137 followers on our Instagram accounts and 159 posts we already submitted. So we also have hundreds of likes and comments comes from our followers. And we also have a Facebook page for our club that is also going to share some beautiful Shelley collections from our members. And yes, I also want you, if you like to share your beautiful Shelley collections, feel free to sign the pictures, photos, or maybe a short videos to me either via the Instagram message, Facebook message, or email. All of them are available to share your collections to me, and I will post them to our Facebook and Instagram account to let more people to see the beautiful Shelleys. And also you can choose to share with your name on the post, or you can share with anonymous. So we can just say, okay, this collection comes from a member of Shelley Club. It's up to you. So yeah, and we also want our Shelley collection have a broader audience, more and more people to see it. That is the goal of this project. Yeah, thank you. Back to Lee.
Thank you, Rocky. And I encourage everyone to share some of your history and stories with Lee and your birthday. And please have a look at our Facebook page and Instagram. We're really hoping to start to do more to appeal to younger people.
Is there a way that the social media approach through Facebook or Instagram can be expanded beyond the membership? Are there avenues that you can use that would have a wider audience to see this?
Yes, it's not quick answer. It's not limited on the members. It's all public. So everyone on the internet can see our posts.
Is there a way to ping it so that some people will see it? I mean, we're not paying for a posting at this point, is that right?
You mean paying?
Well, crudely, we're not advertising.
No.
Apparently, we could advertise.
Yes, absolutely. This is currently is the first step. And we also looking and explore the options to either advertising or boosting our posts to more audience. That is another option we want to explore after we setting up this account. So maybe in the following meetings with the membership committee, we can also bring these options to discuss. And absolutely, we can do that. Thank you for your suggestion.
Yeah, I would add to that indeed part of it might be to offer, if you did do that, to offer perhaps a half-price first-year membership as an incentive for people to join.
Yeah,
consider that.
That's a good point. Thank you.
We have another incentive to new members because they are given a piece of Shelley that is donated by other members.
That would be good as part of the advertisement.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you, Rocky, and thank you, Lee. Donna Gapin will now tell us about how the Care and Share program is working so far.
Hi, everybody. The Care and Share program was initiated this year. And what it is basically it's a program where an active member can nominate an individual to the Care and Share program who is not a member, who has never been a member. And if they give us their name and their address, I won't, but certainly we will send them a cup and saucer. You can't make a request for a particular cup and saucer, but Nancy Carpenter will then get the information. You send it to me or to Nancy, who you want to nominate for the program. And Nancy and I will talk, and Nancy will send the cup and saucer. And so we have someone who else has been told, a friend. Well, you don't even have to tell them. You can just wait for the cup and saucer to arrive. And we've done that in order to perhaps get other people interested in Shelley China by actually seeing and holding the china and owning the china. This year, we have sent Nancy has sent 6 cups and saucers to individuals in the Care and Share program. And we did get 1 new member from it. So we're hoping to get more people nominated in the next year, because we have a lot of people donating china into that program to send to individuals as potential members. Those of you who used it, if you have any comments, we'd love to hear back from you.
Are there any comments? Lyle, do you see any?
No, I don't.
Okay.
May I facetiously suggest that somebody else send a cup and saucer to one of my grandchildren? I can't do it, but I wonder whether we ought to think about partnering or pairing up people with other people's grandchildren.
We would be delighted to help you send something to your grandchildren if you'd like. Would you like to donate it also?
Sure, we could do that.
Great. We could do that.
But I wonder whether.
And it would be from the club.
Good.
That's what the program is for. Warm up your grandchildren to, we'll continue it as long as we have enough donated cups and saucers.
Right. If you want to donate a particular cup and saucer to go to someone, I think we can probably do that too. I think that's what Lynn is saying.
Yes.
And then I do have just one comment because I'm still doing the database. More than ever, accurate emails are critically important because we don't have Zoom calls if we don't have notifications via email. So,
Donna, how are you collecting your cups and saucers?
Just through donations.
But where?
But to where? But we have 3, I think we could donate.
To Nance.
You send them to Nance Carpenter. If you go on the membership section of the website of the National Shelley China Club website, it explains the program in detail and who to donate the china to.
Okay. Thank you.
And if it doesn't say that, if there's something that's not clear there, just shoot me an email or shoot Nance Carpenter an email and we'll clarify.
Elizabeth Newton, you have something? But you're muted. Elizabeth, we
can't hear.
The microphone button should be at the low.
I'm sorry. I was using it a way that doesn't work. So I just want to say that this year I was one of the people that requested the Care and Share packages, and actually I asked for 2 different ones. And my daughter and my youngest son were getting married this year. And I decided to have these Shelley pieces sent to the new member of the family. This is my daughter, future daughter-in-law, and my future son-in-law. And I did this to kind of be on a mission about Shelley, because young people need to know about these very fine objects that they can possess and appreciate their beauty and their quality. And I thought I would be setting them up for a future with Shelley. And I also put together 2 tea sets of Shelley pieces for each of these newly married couples. And I did the same for my son, oldest son, about 7 years ago. So I collected together some things to make tea sets. So I'm just saying that when Frank was talking about his grandchildren, this Care and Share actually does help us to, like you say, spread the word. And I appreciate your having the program. Thank you very much. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? So thank you, Donna, for doing that, for initiating it and helping it to grow. Next up is my personal hero this year, Carolyn Keating. who has taken on the magazine so slickly and so well. Carolyn?
Thanks, Lynn. Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to thank Mike because he was an excellent teacher teaching me how to do it. And, and I want to thank everybody who's given me such a great show of support in taking on this new job. And I'm having a lot of fun. But there's always something that can happen that would help even more. And that is if anyone has something they'd like to write about and submit to me so that we can put it in the magazine. You can write about your collection. You could write about an area of Shelley that really interests you. There's all kinds of research available. And anyway, it's a lot of fun. So send me your contributions if you have them. The other thing is I wanted to mention that the next issue of the magazine is coming out the first week in well, I'm sending it to the printers the first week in December, which means that if you can have your submissions to me by November 15th, that gives me time to format them and get them placed in the magazine, and every 3 months thereafter for each issue. So thanks for your help. I hope you all have something to write about, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Lynn, this is Mike, just a minute, please.
Certainly.
Yeah, you may not have, you may have or may not have seen this. I'm getting a message from our charter cable company that the cable internet signal is unstable. So I'm going to give you a little warning here. If we disappear for a couple of minutes, give me a minute to get that fixed. I'm setting up an alternate ISP on my iPhone, and we should be able to change to that instantaneously if in fact this internet connection fails. This is very unusual. I've not seen it for a long time, so I don't quite know what's going on there, but just a warning. That's all I got.
Thanks. And I'll keep my fingers crossed. We have a bright, sunshiny day here. There's no storm. There's no reason for this silly stuff. Thank you, Carolyn. Right from here, really strong. Thank you. The magazine is everything to this club, and you're enabling it to continue. Thank you. And while I'm thanking Carolyn, I want to thank Mike for having done it for, I think it was 16 years. And he did it as a labor of love, not because he was a Shelley collector, but because I was. And that's fabulous. And from my heart, thank you, Michael. You're muted, sweetie, and everybody is clapping.
Well, okay. I just wanted to say I am actually a Shelley collector now. I have 2 pieces.
Thank you. Next up is Lyle with the website.
Well, hi, everybody. Those of you who listen to me pontificate about the web in past conferences know that I used to be fond of giving you all kinds of statistics. Well, I'm not going to do that this time. I'll just say that we're all old still, although surprisingly, most of our members are under age 65. So that's probably good news, at least as far as the website goes. Much again to my surprise, the Brits outpace Americans in using our website. So certain things change and certain things don't, and those two don't. With respect to the website, I wanted to mention again that the password is on the second page of the magazine. It's been there for 13 years now, and that means I've broken every rule of web security by letting it be the same for so long. So one of these days it's going to change, and if you have trouble finding the website, then by all means look at your second page of the magazine, and the current password should be there. In that regard, I wanted to indicate as well that there is a tab called Renew, Join the Club. So if you want to renew, you don't have to do it with a paper form. It's the same one. Go to the Renew, Join the Club tag, and you can use PayPal and everything else to renew. So that makes it fairly easy and straightforward. The new form actually gives you the ability to put your birth date in, and all you have to do is click on the number. You don't have to actually write in anything. So that's, I'm endeavoring to make that as easy as possible. In that regard, and it's already been mentioned, we really and truly need your email. That's how I at least conduct notifications. And so if you wanted to hear about the conference coming or something else, or a new Zoom meeting, it comes via email. We don't send them out via snail mail. So please make sure that we have your email and that it's correct. Also remember that just because we have your email and address, that doesn't mean that it will be printed in the club directory. You have to affirmatively indicate that you want those materials presented in the directory. So please don't neglect your email message or email address just because you don't want it to be included in the directory. I wanted to add two other things. We have the UK club has been very, very diligent in having Zoom meetings. They're all on their website. If you go to our books and resources tab, there's a tab for the UK videos. They'll take you on a link direct to the UK club, and you can see a phenomenal collection of videos. So I encourage you, when you're just sitting around and playing, go take a look at those fantastic videos. In that regard, it also mentioned that Lee mentioned the 25th anniversary presentation by the UK club. That's also on our website and under the events tab. If you want to see a fantastic display of Shelley, by all means, stop by that tab and take a look at what they put together for their 25th anniversary. It's rivaled only by the Australian people who have these fantastic fairs. And one of these days, hopefully, we'll be able to come up with something similar. But in any event, if you really do like Shelley, take a good look at those two tabs. Lastly, I should close out on some technical information. We finally managed to work past the end of Flash as a base for web applications. The future still needs our converting the website from HTML4 to HTML5. Essentially, it's been written in Sanskrit, and now we need to advance to modern day English. That's a big task that I don't recommend anyone undertake, least alone me, but someone's going to have to get that done one of these days soon. So keep your fingers crossed. By all means, check the website periodically, and thank you for listening. Back to you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lyle. Our next report is from Irene Shelley. She is organizing our speakers for the quarterly Zoom meetings. We do one a quarter out of the monthly talks that are shared around. Irene?
Yes, well, I think I'll repeat what everyone said. And as you've already said, I think particularly all of us here on this session know that the international clubs have had a lot of fun collaborating on these things. And we've kind of formalized that we'll each take our turn. So the US club will be doing the sessions in January, April, July, and October. And so I'm certainly looking for speakers and would love to have any of you send me an email or call me up to chat, even through just some ideas. I think we want to try some different formats, and we're open to being creative. So would love to share some ideas. I know we've just all so enjoyed the different kinds of fun you can have with Shelley. As we saw today, you can go to the shape, how it was made, the history that surrounds it, the fashion at the time. So there are really so many different facets that we can explore all around how it has impacted the china that we love to collect. So I'd encourage all of you to give me a shout, and I'll warn you that if you don't reach out to me, I'll be reaching out to you. So fair warning, please put on your creative hats so we can continue to have fun. And thanks so much to all of you. We just so enjoy seeing all of you on these Zoom sessions. Back to you, Lynn.
Thank you so much. The next thing on our agenda is, what are we going to do for our next annual meeting? I received 34 replies to the survey I sent out about a month ago. That's maybe 15% of our members replied. 10 of the responders had never been to an annual meeting at all. 24 had been, to travel to a personal meeting. It surprised me that 19 of the responders, more than half, did not want to have Zoom meetings and were willing to travel and stay in hotels to do so in person. At the same time, I had comments about distance and cost, which are concerns for many of you. People are not so crazy about taking a cruise, or at least not next fall. My conclusion from the survey are to have a land-based conference close to everyone and not very expensive. And this is too big a country to do all of that. What I hope we'll find is someone willing to take the lead in an easy to get to place and find a reasonable hotel. The top 10 cities on a Google survey for easy to get to are the cities that have the most flights in and out of them. And they start with Atlanta at the top. Chicago is number 2, Dallas, Denver, Los Angeles, Charlotte, Orlando, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Seattle. We need a decent restaurant in one of those cities, lounging area and bar, plus a meeting room, someplace to look for Shelley, and or something else interesting to do nearby to take up extra days so that we can take advantage of having flown there. If organizing a conference sounds overwhelming, it's really not so bad. First, Lyle, would you show that bottom part of that spreadsheet? Sure. First, we have to have a hotel and a reasonable commute from a big airport. People don't want to have to take a taxi for an hour and a half drive to get to the hotel. The bigger the airport, the easier it is to get to. Then we need to negotiate a contract that allows us to cancel in case of COVID. Who knows what the next generation of this is going to cost us? Arrange the dates to coincide with an antiques fair or something else to do. Find a few people willing to give talks. That's probably the hardest part, but the board will help and will probably volunteer. Find a few raffle prizes so Rochelle can sell raffle tickets again. Rochelle will probably handle the receipts and pay the bills. Somebody needs to keep track of who's coming and what they've reserved for meal service. Find somebody to put together a few trivia or other games for a Friday night. Find someone to run a silent auction. Get a sale room set up. Find someone to set up the pot show. Eliminate any activity you can't get somebody else to volunteer for. The list shows in front of you so that you can see what we're looking for. One of the things we would really like to have is if you're willing to do any one of them, send me a chat, send me an email, or raise your hand. If you do one thing on the list, you could be part of the team to get it all done. And it makes it really simple if you only have one thing to be responsible for. So send me a chat. Raise your hand. We can all get this going. I'm open to questions if you'd raise your hand. Lyle will help you watch for me.
If you raise your hand, that doesn't mean you volunteer. So
no, it doesn't.
Lynn, did you say Orlando again?
Orlando is one of the top 10 cities that are easiest to get to.
Okay.
I'm not saying that we should have our conference in Orlando,
right,
but
it was in the group.
The easier it is and the more centrally located, the more people are willing to come and the easier it is for people to get there at a reasonable cost.
Yeah.
Which is why Seattle is there, but Portland is not. Portland would then work out to be an extra hop for people, for instance, from then getting to Seattle. It's more direct.
Yeah, I know a lot of those airports, and some of them, like Atlanta, I mean, it's got a great airport, but it doesn't have much around it that you can do, or the hotels there are quite expensive. As many hotels around airports are, by the way.
It's not, a hotel that's right at the airport is not necessarily the best, but it's convenient. And for 3 days that we're nearly always there at the hotel, that's not a big issue either. So I've explained the process. Let me know if you're willing to volunteer to do any one of those jobs. It's way more fun than you think to be behind the scenes at a conference. I see a hand up from Mike.
Mike?
Yeah, couple of comments. I'm not volunteering because I'd get shot. Couple of comments. I'm a little surprised that Chicago or St. Louis, not Chicago, but St. Louis or Kansas City aren't on that list. They're obviously centrally located, so they should be fairly easy to get to. One of the issues about easy to get to is that they probably have lower airline fares to those top 10 than Chicago and St. Louis or Kansas City. So put that, I would suggest to put those two on our list to at least consider. They have the advantage of being centrally located. Both cities do have some really nice off-campus, if you will, entertainment and things to do. I know Kansas City's downtown. There's a couple of really nice hotels located near a great shopping area. And St. Louis, not sure about their activities there other than the football team, but St. Louis has got a couple of really nice, I'll call them old time hotels, the types that we all wish we could have stayed at some time, with great service and a lot of atmosphere and antiques in the room sort of thing. And that has that brought to it. So anyway, just a couple of ideas to put on the list.
To make sure that the next annual meeting is really close to home, what you need to do, the very most, is find a really good hotel near you and let me know about it.
I would think that Charlotte.
I'm not putting anybody on the spot right this moment. If anyone would like to volunteer, you can shout out, that's fine, or you can email me right after the meeting. So thank you very much.
Lynn, could I just ask one question about
Sure,
the hotel? Do we have a guess as to how many people might potentially come? I mean, I'm just sort of wondering, just by the numbers that are here at this, how many of the people today would be willing to travel or, you know, come? And okay, just could we have a show of hands? So most everybody. Okay, so how many people do you think we might need the hotel to accommodate?
I think we might need 25 to 35 rooms.
Okay.
I don't think we're anywhere close to having the kind of 100 person meetings that we used to have.
Right.
That would take half of our membership now.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So that
Would you-
what that
would
does
you-
with the smaller group is it allows us to have a meeting at a smaller independent hotel. We don't have to have 60, 65 rooms available at a much bigger hotel, and we don't have to have big restaurants and huge meeting rooms either. So it should be much cozier to get it all organized and done. And I think if we look at smaller hotels, that we will find it easier to negotiate cancellation policies for COVID.
Would you see this as a potentially hybrid meeting? Would that be an advantage or a disadvantage?
A hybrid, a meeting that we have both in person and on Zoom?
Yes.
It's very hard to Zoom things from a hotel. because you have, instead of everybody's face in front of them in front of a computer screen. But we might try it. The problem with Zooming it also at the time is that it would pull people away who don't have to travel.
Right.
Any other comments?
You know, I know I'm not an easy to get to location, but we could have it here at my house. Just saying, Alaska's kind of cool.
And you have 25 or 30 rooms available?
Well, I could find little Airbnbs for people, but we could accommodate 30 people here at the house because I've done it before with the Corvette Club for food wise and Shelley tours. And if it's in the summer and it's nice weather, we can go on the deck. But finding places to stay in Alaska in the summer, people are going to go, that's too expensive. But it would be nice. Or you could come in the winter and we can all just hunker down in the snowbank. I mean, whatever.
Having grown up in northern Michigan, I'm not at all put off by spending the weekend in a snowbank.
All right, I'll check it out.
I would love to say, since we have gone to one of Rochelle's regionals, I would be totally for it. It's a fabulous place to go. Rochelle's place is fabulous and she's a wonderful hostess. And there are all sorts of different types of accommodations available. But it is a long trip. So Anchorage is it is a trip, but it's fabulous.
Oh, I think there might be a lot of people up for that, Rochelle.
All right, let me retire here real quick and get rid of the company and then I'll let you know.
Okay.
Then I have a question.
Yes, Nancy.
And this is just a question, not to change anything, but looking at what we're doing and how difficult sometimes it is, do we need to do all the activities that we've always done?
No, we never need to do everything that we've always done.
Okay.
That's why I said at the end of that list that if we can't find somebody to do it, that we'll certainly eliminate it.
Okay. Okay.
You know, because the first thing you have to have is a volunteer who's willing. I know somebody is always willing to set up a pot show.
Okay.
We all know who she is. And you're on the spot.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know if that would make anything easier if we didn't have quite so many items. I mean, I like them all, but that was just a suggestion.
Some of the extra items that we do are not a whole lot of trouble.
Okay.
You know, like, it's not a terrible thing to put together a word scramble for a quiz on Friday night, you know, using Shelley words. It's some of those things we have people who are real good at, and they could just, oh, that's easy, I'll do that one. And that's what I'm looking for. Oh, that's easy, I can do that. Because I know you're out there.
Yep.
You know, I put together some monster quizzes in my time. I don't like to do it, but we can have one.
I'll send you an email.
Okie dokie. So that's what I think we need to look at for next year. Is there any more discussion about next year's potential conference? If not, I think that it's finally time for the nominating committee and the nominating committee report. Dan and Shelley, are you here still? I'm looking for you and don't see you.
They're right there.
They are here.
They're muted.
Dan and Shelley, you're on. Dan and Shelley Wilson.
Oh, Wilson.
Rochelle Hart has been a treasurer since 1999, an avid collector of everything Shelley and a key member of the executive committee for 25 years. Happy anniversary. Lynn Prazo is serving a second term as secretary. She collects blue and green daisy chintz in all the Delphic colorways. Betty Pomish, director, is a collector of breakfast sets in Wildman. She gave a Zoom presentation on her much loved breakfast sets and has been featured in Lee Clark's Getting to Know You column. Thank you.
Can we have somebody call for a vote, please?
Just before we call for a vote, I would like to ask for if there are any nominations from the floor. Please, if you have a nomination, please unmute yourself and shout out. Since I don't hear any nominations from the floor, could I please ask for a vote by acclamation for all of the individuals who are being nominated to serve on your Shelley board and to serve as officers? Secretary Lynn Perazzo, Treasurer Rochelle Hart, and Director Betty Pomish.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Hey.
Thank you.
So moved. Agreed.
Everyone in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. The election carried unanimously. And thank you for your service. The final thing that I would like to do is that I would like to recognize some people who have done some extra things. We give an award to the person who writes for the magazine and personifies Kurt and Lynn Leiser to the club. For many years, one of our members has pulled auction records and picked out a page or two of samples. Her auction page was always done anonymously. She retired this year, and I can finally name her. The person who put together the most loved page of our magazine was Ruth Friedman. And I'm finally able to recognize her from her many contributions to the magazine. A special cross pen has been ordered, engraved, and will be delivered to her to encourage her writing efforts. Thank you so much, Ruth. I do not believe that Ruth is here today. Thank you. It's been a closely guarded secret for must be 15 years now. I would also like to recognize a member who has served the club for 25 years, selling raffle tickets like a champ and taking care of all of our treasury needs. Rochelle Hart, please wave. You have done a massive work over the years. You store many of our old magazines, pins, and records in your warehouse. I have no idea how many boxes are up there. You stepped in long ago when LaDonna Douglas passed away and picked up and ran away with it all. We appreciate you so very much and thank you for your service. I cannot give you the Douglas Award as you earned that years ago, but I want you to know how much we value you. Thank you, Rochelle, from the bottom of our collective hearts. And I see a heart on screen from
I'm
Rochelle.
not giving a speech or anything because I've been way too bloody emotional this year since my mom died. So I remember though, when I got nominated for the LaDonna Douglas Award, when Marie Leonards called my mom, who's right here in this little book that we made for her. And I heard my mom in the office and I was like, why is she asking me these strange questions? But Marie was interviewing my mom to find out about me and my Shelley collection. So that's just really special. Thanks.
Thank you very much for everything you've done for us for all of these years. Thank you. That concludes our annual meeting. If anybody has something else that they would like to add or any new business that they would like to bring up, please do so now. Thank you very much to all of you for attending and for being part of today. I appreciate that more than you know. Bye-bye.